I can I can go on and on all the things that we're doing and all of that, you know. Uh, there's a company that I was talking to earlier on the number of different opportunities they are there that they work with us, you know, in Thai.
Okay. Okay. Sai, what do you think? Should we give it another minute or?
Yeah, let's wait for one more minute and we can get started.
Okay.
We are
Okay. Sai, I think maybe we can get the presentation up on the screen and then
Sure.
I'll give it a final minute to kick us off. Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening. It's very exciting to see the roster of founders that we have on the call today. Of course, many congratulations to those who are continuing on their TiEQuest journey for 2025. For those of you who are logging on and are looking to potentially get involved in TiEQuest again in the future, just continue to make the most of the sessions that we have lined up and the network we have available. Really glad that you could make it here this evening. So it's been quite the journey over the last few weeks and really excited to introduce Balyod Gill today. So Sai next. Balyod, thank you so much for joining us on week 8 of the TiEQuest 2025 program. So for the founders in the room, Balyod is a seasoned go-to-market and sales professional, having spent, sort of many years in the tech ecosystem, working with growth stage, early stage companies. He now sort of provides that advisory and fractional services to companies sort of going into stealth mode and thinking about how to rev up their go-to-market engine. So really excited to have Balyod here today. And of course, Balyod, his workshop is going to be building on what you heard from Michael Ho last week. Next, for those who joined us in person for Michael Ho's workshop last week, I hope you found it as insightful as some of us here who've seen Michael over the years do. The unlocking product market fit, so thinking about your market size, your ICPs, and how you sort of piece those puzzle pieces together. Balyod is going to build on some of those, and translate some of that strategy into execution and sort of tactics. Next, just a couple of housekeeping notes before we get into the session. We have a couple of announcements. So the first is that following this week, so next week, we are going to get into the mentorship deep dives. And this is going to be one-on-one, sort of hour-long mentor office hours for the companies that have made it past the elevator pitch round. So this mentorship deep dive is there to, again, really zoom into the business plan, the go-to market strategies, and help you prepare for the business plan pitch round. So for most of these mentors, we are trying to schedule in-person meetings. That rapport is always helpful. So we're trying to make those in person. The TiEQuest team will be in touch with you over the next couple of days to sort of make sure that your availability and location line up. For those who are not in Toronto or may not be able to make it on the specific availabilities of the mentors, not to worry, we could always move it to virtual. Okay, so just a heads up, you can expect that email in your inbox in the next coming days. Next. I just mentioned all of this, so actually, Sai, we'll just skip this over. After the mentorship deep dives, we are going to proceed to the business plan pitch round that is scheduled for the evening of April 14th. And each company will be presenting to a panel of judges. And the business plan round is quite different from the elevator pitch round. As you can see, you've been allocated a lot more time for the pitch. So it'll be 10 minutes for each pitch, followed by another 10 minutes of Q&A. So those who participating in this round, you'll see that really the aim here is to build a pretty comprehensive understanding of where the company is and where you're going, right? If you have any questions about either the mentoring week or the business plan round, please do reach out to the TiEQuest team. Always happy to answer any questions you might have. And with that, I'll pass it over to Mahendra to talk about TI 50.
Thank you very much, Zaheen, and congratulations to all the companies and founders that are participating in the next round. So what is TI 50? TI 50 is a competition managed and run by TI Silicon Valley. And TI Silicon Valley, what many of you don't know, was the founder of TI, more than 30 years ago in the Valley. And their TiECon conference, which takes place typically in early May, this year will be April 30th, May 1st, and May 2nd, is arguably one of the largest entrepreneur conferences around the world. More than 5,000 people show up. They have phenomenal keynote speakers. Like, for example, this year they've got the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, as a keynote speaker, as well as the CEO of Adobe there. So TI 50 is one of their programs, and it's a competition. About 500 or 600 companies apply. They select 50 companies, and the 50 companies and founders are invited to come to and attend the conference. They get to go on the stage, get an award certificate, and also they get to pitch. There's a 3-minute video pitch, about 2 or 3 minutes Q&A that is allowed. The recognition of TI 50 is tremendous. I'd say more than 85% of the companies who have won the TI 50 have gone on and raised tremendous amount of money and have been sold for billions of dollars over the years. The other thing that I will highlight is the relationship that TI Silicon Valley has with the Drapers. The Drapers are a family office, but they're really also a venture capital fund. Started by Bill Draper, now run by Tim Draper and their sister Polly, and they've got a full team of investment professionals. So they have their own show called Meet the Drapers. So this upcoming year will be the 8th year. And what it is it's kind of like the Olympics of entrepreneurs, okay? So what happens here is out of the 50 companies from TI 50, they select about 10 to 12 companies to audition for the Meet the Drapers show, okay? And I would say in the past 10 years that we've nominated the companies from TiEQuest to attend or participate in TiE50, at least 3 to 5 companies get selected. We don't have any say in it. And out of the 3 to 5 companies that get selected, at least 2 of them get selected to audition for the Drapers. It's a separate event, probably on May 1st or 2nd. I don't know the exact date. And again, it's a 5 or 10-minute pitch. And they have their own way of deciding who gets to come on their show and compete. And ultimately, that results in $1 million US investment. And it's a worldwide competition. The reason why I'm mentioning all of this is the exposure that one gets. And so if you apply for TiE50, you get selected, TiE Toronto and our sponsors will cover the cost for you to attend and stay there. But the exposure you'll get is tremendous. Also, the opportunity to get selected by the Drapers. So look at this as a prize, okay? And the exposure is invaluable, okay? Meeting investors, business partners, and other very interesting people. And again, TiE Toronto, TiEQuest has a 10-year track record of sending great companies there. A number of them have gone on and done tremendously well. So that's what TiE50 is about. In due course, you will know about it, whether you've been identified to apply. And the key deadline is April 15th, 12 midnight Pacific Standard Time. And there are no exceptions to that. Again, we don't manage or control this and that. So as soon as you're identified, you'll be given a promo code and you complete the application. The sooner you do, the better, okay? So let's carry on with the main topic for the evening and that.
Thanks, Mahendra. So for the TiE50, I think as Mahendra mentioned, we'll be following up with some more information and next steps. But with that, over to you, Balyod. Please take us through the GTM engine.
Perfect. Thanks, Sahin, and thanks to Ty for helping coordinate this. Super excited. These are some of my favorite webinar workshop styled sessions to operate. A little bit about myself and what we're going to talk about. Go-to-market can be complicated, but if you break it down into its core steps, it becomes a very easy and repeatable process. Most of the time, what happens in early stages and with founders is we start to become overwhelmed with the size of our market and all the different opportunities we have. We're rapidly looking for money, which often causes us to pivot from ICP to ICP. And as we go through these motions, we just end up not getting the traction that we need. When we start looking at it from a functional standpoint, and if you're looking for funding or investment down the road, you need to show a path to revenue as well as a path to profitability. And all of that starts with a strong go-to-market motion. Whether you're looking for product market fit, you're scaling, or anywhere in between, you need to know what that message is. And a lot of it starts with psychology. So what we're going to cover in today's session is first just go through what's happening in the world of sales and go-to-market, how we should be approaching it, the blueprint to start developing it, and then how do we leverage AI and some tools like ChatGPT, Perplexity, and Claude to speed up that process. What you might notice in the market now is there's a heavy reliance on AI. There's AI sales bots, there's AI messaging, there's AI content on LinkedIn. And if you notice what's happening is we're becoming disengaged from these channels just because there's so much noise. What we need to do is understand how do we break through that noise to get in front of our customers and ideally start that fruitful conversation that leads to early traction in a business. A little bit about myself. Been in sales and partnerships for over 10 years now. Also teach at Conestoga College and the University of Waterloo in their sales and entrepreneurship programs. Helped over 50 startups scale their sales and partnership motions, build out marketing frameworks, and lead founder-led sales motions, including several funding rounds that conclusively reached 11 million in Series A and 9 million in seed funding. As an individual contributor, worked with many early stage startups, helping them get traction in new markets or just their first handful set of customers. Also have worked in large scale organizations like Shopify. So anywhere from enterprise sales to building that first handful of customers is my bread and butter. But really, when I boil down what I'm passionate about, it's those early stage startups that I get the most joy with. Most recently, I've been working out of the Accelerator Center in Waterloo, helping their AC Studios, the top 25 startups within the Accelerator Center, build out their market validation and pursue a seed round. The first, I'd say 20 minutes of this session is going to be a lot of talking from me. Once we get through that portion, we're going to do a little bit of a workshop to help you develop a draft of a go-to-market strategy. I'm going to share the prompts that I use using Claude and Perplexity, and then we're going to work together to understand our market. Ideally, you've built out a little bit of an ideal customer profile from your previous session with Michael, and we'll be able to leverage that as well. And then talk about how do we actually go and pursue our first handful of potential prospects. But before we get into all of that, first we need to talk about what's happening in the world today. In sales, in go-to-market, in relationships, the most valuable currency we have is trust. Mahindra spoke to this just at the start of the session, talking about just doing good for others, doing good in your community, and in Ty's example, doing good among early stage founders and startups. When we think of sales and go-to-market motions, trust is the pillar of everything that drives success when it comes to revenue, relationships, and customers. However, because of this vast saturation of artificial intelligence and scaling automation, we're facing an empathy crisis. And I'm sure we've all seen this one way or another. I call it the empathy recession, where we're bombarded with so much content that we become disengaged in conversation. Buyers and sellers feel like they're just talking past each other. There's a feeling of frustration and disconnect when it comes to any type of conversation taking place, whether in sales or outside of it. And we're just becoming more absent and more reluctant to having any type of conversation, where conversation is integral to the success of any business. The example I always give is if you're at a car dealership, a used car dealership, and you're browsing cars, and you see the salesperson walking towards you, what happens? You immediately get your guard up. You immediately try to think of excuses. And before that salesperson can mention anything to do with what they have, what they're offering, you're thinking of all the objections you can use to ignore them. That motion is repeating professionally as well. Our inboxes are super saturated with a bunch of different types of emails. We have all this different type of context that we can't relate to, so we end up ignoring everything. It's the same feeling when you get a sleazy phone call or a sleazy sales email. You just don't feel engaged, or it's not even worth the effort to let them know you're not interested. The problem is, as a founder, you're sitting on the other side of the fence as well, that you have to do this outreach to try to get the audience interested, to ideally get some feedback, maybe validate and test a pilot of your product or service, and validate that there's an opportunity with what you're building. What happens in between is a disconnect between how buyers perceive the market and how sellers are approaching that market. As a buyer, we often feel like data points. We don't feel like we're having conversations anymore. We feel like the sellers that are approaching us are just using templated answers, not really listening to our problems, and not really engaging to find the best solution that fits our needs. And as sellers, we know this is happening, so we start relying on other tactics. Having worked with founders over the past 5 years specifically, the thing I keep noticing in those talk tracks is founders are trying to remove themselves from the sales process and go-to-market strategies and leverage AI to automate LinkedIn posts, potentially hire a sales rep to handle cold calling and sending emails, and ideally the sales process. But this creates a huge gap between product and revenue. If you're not talking to your customers, you don't understand what's going on in the market, and you aren't able to develop your product or service to match that. So we see this incline of automation. We see this incline of removing founders from the sales process. And especially in the early stage, that creates a massive disconnect. And as investment gets tighter and tighter and expectations on the founders and the startups grow, unless you're able to show a successful founder-led sales model, it's going to become incredibly difficult to justify investment for your solution, regardless of product market fit. Michael actually spoke to this on a post earlier today, speaking to even if you have growing revenue, unless you can quantify and explain the market opportunity, it's very difficult to see investment in the current market. So I'm going to touch on that in a second. But before I do, I just want to give the real world example that you might all be familiar with. And feel free to mention in the chat. You can come off mic if you have questions as we go through this, trying to keep this as interactive as we can. But this is the typical example of what my inbox looks like. I've blurred out the names, but you can see the type of messages I'm getting. And I just wanted to ask, are these relatable? When you go on LinkedIn, everyone here participating, have you seen messages like this before? Have you gotten these generic, these two are the most recent I've had, where someone messaged me a tip about, it was a financial planner sending me a message about, how to plan a retirement strategy. I had someone else that's talking about fractional sales and giving me some guidance around a YouTube video I can watch. How many in the group have been bombarded with these type of messages? So the gap here is these are heavily automated. The problem is no matter how personalized we make our message, if the prospect we're reaching out to has received 80 or 90 of these kind of messages, there's already a preconception that they've made that, oh, it's another salesperson, it's another founder trying to sell me something. And we need to overcome that. This is the most important part of go-to-market strategy. Before we talk about our approaches, our channels, our messaging, building out our list, we need to really understand from a psychological standpoint the trust gap that exists and how to overcome it. This is the main pillar that we want to establish. In the current market, sellers often fail to demonstrate an understanding of their buyers. And buyers often feel like they're just getting pitched to and nobody's listening to them. The general question we should always ask ourselves as we build out go-to-market strategies, as we build out our messaging, as we talk to our potential customers, is can we position ourselves to drive value to that business and educate that audience without a discussion about our product? The end goal of every conversation that you have in sales and go to any type of market motion is driving value to your customers that's not inherently based on your product. You want to be, as a founder, a market leader in knowledge and expertise so you can provide a consultative approach to your sale. If you have a transactional product, you should be doing that through a self-directed route. If your product is more complex and you have to talk to many people before closing a deal, then it should be you providing that value. I'm touching on a few different topics here. I'm going to bring them all together as we go through this content. So how do we bridge that gap? The methodology I've created is around perceptive selling. The core principles of perceptive selling follow 4 pillars, which is we want empathy and insights. We want to uncover hidden issues within the organization. We want to educate rather than pitch our product. And we want to create tailored solutions for each engagement. What happens with most founders is we see a problem in the world. We become passionate about solving it. Then we spend all this time understanding how to solve it. We forget how to communicate the problem. One of the examples I like to use is if you see someone with a stuffy nose and you walk up to them and say, hey, you're showing severe signs of rhinovirus. If you don't take specific over-the-counter prescriptions, it may worsen and become much more severe. all of a sudden my anxiety is going to start working up. Like, what is rhinovirus? That sounds very serious. I'm very concerned about this. What am I going to do? Alternatively, if I said, hey, it sounds like you have a runny nose, usually when I have a runny nose and I try to fall asleep, I just can't. There's this Robitussin that's specific for congestion that should solve that for you. We're communicating the same thing in two different aspects. One is very specific to the language that the product would resolve. And the second method is tied to how we would actually experience the problem. When we think of perceptive selling, when we think of the messaging we want to use, there's two steps to it. First, we need to deeply understand what the problem is defined as, both from a prescriptive standpoint as well as a self-diagnosis standpoint from our prospects. And then secondly, we want to know how our product or service is uniquely positioned to solve it. If we think about what this motion looks like, the first thing we want to do is diagnose and not prescribe. This is usually when we think of messaging and strategies and just coming up with what our pitch and positioning will be, we often face gaps. We want to dive deeper outside of just the root causes and understand what are the possible solutions that exist to the problem that our prospects are facing, and then diagnose the best solution for those problems. There's an organization I was working with called Triple Time, and we're going to use Triple Time as a live example at the end of this session as well. Triple Time works with cardiologists as an AI note taker that will automate the process of note taking after appointments for cardiologists. Let's take a moment here just to think about this. So the solution is an AI note taker for cardiologists post patient appointment. Can we think of any reasonings or any frustration points that note taking and administrative tasks could cause a cardiologist? So we're open conversation here. You can come off mic, you can provide it in the chat. Let's just think about what are all the challenges or frustrations that a cardiologist could face if they had to manually write down and take notes throughout the day. What comes to mind? Loss of time, definitely. More time on admins than seeing patients, absolutely. Any others? I would say those are the two prominent ones here. Keeping notes organized and retrievable would be difficult, especially if it's manual. So those are the core pieces of the problem that we're talking about. So there's loss of time. We're spending a lot of time taking notes. It's really hard to keep those notes organized, and I know I'm legally required to make those notes. So I'm spending more time on admin work and less time seeing patients, which is what I'd want to do, which I'm paid to do, and what I enjoy doing. Now, all of those things are going to start leading to some emotions. What type of emotions do you think a cardiologist is feeling as they're doing all of this work that's not relevant to what they enjoy doing? Frustration, anger, potentially just sad, right? You're not doing the work that you enjoy doing. So now we're packaging this state of a cardiologist and we're speaking to the problems. The second thing we want to do is quantify and really scale up what that issue looks like. And we can use AI to do this. So we're going to do this exercise in a minute here, but a cardiologist is taking a bunch of notes a day, is constantly worried about making errors on those notes, and knows that for every hour they spend on note taking, that's one or two patients that they're not able to see. We're still speaking at a very high level around these problems. What we want to do is find out exactly how much time they're spending on those problems, What is statistically the common issues and challenges that occur with those problems? And then speak to what potential solutions exist. So without the idea of the AI note taker, what could a cardiologist do to alleviate some of these burdens? So we have the three here. They're losing time. There's more time spent on admin work than seeing patients, and the note taking is really difficult to keep organized and retrieve. What kind of solutions could a cardiologist use to solve that problem if it wasn't an AI note taker? What comes to mind? Assistant would be the first one I think of. Other kinds of voice recorders, absolutely. Maybe a software, right? There's other SaaS solutions out there that are management systems. Excel is probably one of the world's biggest solution to every problem. From early stage companies all the way, Shopify is one of the largest organizations I work for. You'd be astonished to how much of that organization still runs on Google Sheets versus all the software that they have. So these solutions could work. They could work just as well as the AI solution. And some of them, or each of them, has a pro and con. And this is the part where we want to start establishing our understanding of the market. What are the benefits of using Excel? What are the resistors or cons for using it? Benefits of voice recorder versus the con. Benefits of hiring assistant versus the cons of hiring assistant. At a very high level, look, an assistant can take a lot off your plate, but they are not a note taker. They're not experts in the cardiology space, and they're very expensive. Voice recorders could potentially work, but then translating a voice to memo using the exact transcript might not be exactly what you need because notes need to be formatted in a specific way. And then Word and Excel, much more cost effective, but then still a manual process to stay organized. So as we start understanding these options, it helps us create collateral and content before we reach out to our prospects and during that prospect outreach. When we put those pieces together, we can start creating some messaging and talk tracks that correlate to the world of the cardiologist, as well as what they're thinking about potentially using and why they should consider us as an option. So let's break down the process of how we do this for each one of your organizations. So we'll use a live example. If you're on your laptop, you can follow along and we can all do this at the same time. At the end of, I think this is going to take about 20 minutes. If you have your laptop open, all the content and prompts I'm going to share, you should be able to use for free using Perplexity and Claude. But the more important thing here is you have to think about the questions you're asking and you have to review it to make sure it's sound. The biggest gap with ChatGPT, Claude, and all these AI tools that we're using, the example I give is if you knew no math, like you had no idea what 5 + 7 equaled, and you used a calculator, that calculator would effectively be useless because you don't know if the answer it's giving you is correct. So the reason we go through this thought logic and thinking system first is to help build that original hypothesis and then find statistics to validate it further. Before we get into the workflow, let's just do a high level exercise. If you ran a grocery store and you were hiring someone to stock shelves, and one person comes in and hands you a resume, that's option one. The second person comes in, looks at you with confidence and says, nobody in Toronto will stock shelves faster and more accurately than me. Who are you more interested in conducting an interview with? Option one or option two? It's obvious, right? Even though you haven't seen the resume, right? It's you're compelled, and you're compelled for a few reasons. There's conviction in the voice. They didn't talk about their accolades, but they spoke specifically to the problem that you're dealing with. It's the same reason we trust our neighbors when they tell us who their handy person was, or we get herbal medicine, right? I think of how many times I'm sick. Someone tells me oregano oil, someone tells me echinacea, and I'm trying everything because I heard it from a friend, and they're speaking to it from a problem standpoint rather than the statistical insights. Our job with go-to-market is to constantly be in a frame of mind where we can speak in the language of option two. The problem is if we haven't done our research and understand our market, we are stuck doing option one. And you'll see this when you write resumes or when you write pitches, when you write emails, when you're cold calling, when you're talking to a prospect, when we don't understand the world of our prospect and we don't know who our prospect is, we will start talking about all the features and functionality of our product. And we want to remove ourselves from that as much as possible. In order to do that, there's 4 steps. First, we need to have a deep understanding of what we do and what we offer. Then we need to look at what do we know about our clients, our potential clients, the world they live in, and what's happening in their industry. Then we need to go into their customers' world and what is their customers' expectations or effectively their stakeholders. So let's do a high-level example for the cardiologist again. The note-taking software is what we provide. So it's an AI note taker that speeds up the process of taking notes, and the AI will format the notes and the transcripts to be in the appropriate format to meet compliance with EMR, electronic medical records. Our clients are cardiologists. What do we know about cardiologists? So I've already done this research before, and we'll walk through how we do it. On average, every day, a cardiologist will have an 8-hour day, of which 5 hours are for note-taking and 3 hours are for client-facing time. This creates a huge problem. Across Canada, this problem is worsening because there is an uptick in hypertension, high blood pressure, and heart disease, which are the 3 primary reasons of illness and disease that cause regular cardiologist visits. As a patient, you're trying to book appointments as quickly as possible and have as smooth of an experience as possible. And one of the worst feelings as a patient as well is having to get to a doctor's at a specific time and then having to sit there for an additional hour past your appointment time to see the doctor. So this is creating friction back in the industry into the cardiologist that your patients are unhappy, they're not getting the experience that they want. That's leading to more frustration for you as a cardiologist, and all this while you're having to spend 5 hours a day note-taking rather than seeing more clients. So we can see how much we can speak to the problem. All those statistics and information around 5 hours of a day for note-taking, heart disease, hypertension, and high blood pressure, all of those were uncovered using the prompts that we're about to go through. So there's 3 aspects of selling and building out a go-to-market strategy that we need to cover. We need to figure out our lead generation strategy. We need to figure out our pipeline strategy, and we need to figure out our deal strategy. In a founder-led sales motion, you're going to be managing all 3, but you only have a certain amount of hours per day, right? You're building your product, you're talking to potentially investors, you have mentor hours, you have webinars like these, and you have to find time to sell. So what we need to do is really understand where is our time best spent. Most founders I work with are probably allocating like 50 to 60 hours a day. If they're working full time, then they're spending another full-time hours in the evenings building out their startup. And where most founders get lost in go-to-market is they get distracted, right? They're trying to find somewhere where they can get traction and then they lose focus and they're going after multiple ICPs and multiple personas. In the early stages of go-to-market, you really want to hone in into 1 or 2 segments. So the session with Michael had talked to you about TAM, SAM, and SOM, and potentially building out an ICP. We're going to use some AI to help us really understand what publicly available information is out there and use that to understand what our hyper-focused segment could be and the statistical information that we could use to conduct that outreach. The goal of this exercise is we understand our hyper-focused segment. We understand what information is publicly available that we can speak to, and then we leverage that to start a go-to-market motion. And if we document this process, it makes it much easier for us to pursue investment, because if that go-to-market strategy becomes successful, it's much easier for me to go to an investor and say, for every X number of dollars you invest in my business, I can scale my go-to-market strategy by Y. So X dollars create Y revenue. And you'll be able to measurably report that outcome. We do this by creating a beachhead strategy. Has anyone attending heard of a beachhead strategy before? It's starting to raise some popularity. There's a few different methods to approach it. Really what we want to do is define, of all the strategies we can focus on, how do we narrow it down to understand where we enter the market and can we well define that segment? The way we do this is by understanding where are the biggest pain points. Can we quantify those pain points? And then can we create domain expertise in that space? This goes back to the context I was speaking to a little bit earlier, where nobody stocks shelves better than me is the mindset we want to be able to adopt. And we do that by having a deep understanding of what's happening with our clients' industries, and their customers. If I walk into a cardiologist's office and I say, hey, you don't know me, but I've worked with dozens of cardiologists and I know a ton of your time is spent on note taking. And specifically, let's say we're in Toronto. Toronto has the fourth highest rate of heart disease and hypertension in Ontario, which means of all the cardiologists I've talked to, you probably have the biggest need for seeing clients and the least amount of time. Now, there's a few different ways that cardiologists have been overcoming this, including Excel note-taking, but there's some strategies that are much more cost-effective and bring you the maximum time back. I'm wondering if you're interested in hearing what some of those options are. So I haven't talked about the note taker, I haven't talked about AI, but I have enough information and I can speak from a domain standpoint to start that conversation. And once we get into that talk track, it's much easier for us to create marketing collateral as well. And we can do it at scale without having to hire a huge marketing team. Once we understand those pillars of a segment that we're focused in on, we can build all these tools to say, hey, even if you're not ready to review our platform, we will make your business better because we understand this space so well. There's three core pillars to the beachhead approach. We want to focus on a specific segment and not distract ourselves until we have fully tested that segment that we're targeting. We want to clearly define what our objectives are. And then we want to create promises and that compelling specific value proposition in that space. Nobody will stock shelves better than me is the statement we're trying to create. And we can only create that if we know what our segment is. If I wanted to be an account executive, if I wanted to be a software developer, I can't go into a Shopify and say nobody will stock shelves better than me because it's completely irrelevant to the work that I'm doing. We want to segment ourselves concisely so we can have that same compelling value proposition over and over again. In this case, with the cardiologist, we can track down what are the top 10 cities with the highest rate of heart disease because we know those cardiologists are the most burnt out. And then we can create a repeatable, compelling message to broker that conversation. And we can build a compelling, repeatable message for our collateral as well. I just want to take a pause here. Any questions so far as we're going through this?
Participants may unmute yourself to ask any question if you need.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to unmute yourself. One or two things are happening right now. One is the content is really easy to follow, or it's so all over the place it doesn't make sense at all. So I'm hoping it's the former here.
Hey, Balio.
Yep.
Shiv here from Easework AI. Quick question. So, in principle, a note taker could be a general solution that can cut across multiple domains, right? I mean, it can go to a general physicist, or it can go to a cardiologist in this example, or it can go to say anyone in the medical profession. Or it could go even to teachers or someone like that, right? So now, in those scenarios, how do they even triangulate on a cardiologist? Why did they pick cardiology or that group?
Yeah, so they picked it for a few reasons. One, the co-founder is a cardiologist. That's the biggest. That's the biggest one. But you brought up a really good point. Note takers in themselves are universally applicable. So when we think about what we're looking at here, as a cardiologist, there's specific documentation that you need. And it needs to be formatted in a way so that it's approved. And then more importantly, as other cardiologists review those notes, they need to find the right information. So if we dive a little bit deeper into the world of cardiologist, you'll often have a scenario where the notes are just scribbled in because they have to get it done. And then when that patient comes back and sees a different cardiologist, there's lost translation. So this note taker has proprietary information in the background that's designed to format all transcripts to be specific for the cardiologist use case. In terms of the notes that are being taken, how it's repurposed, and then ultimately what is posted on the EHR. If we use the same use case for a sales call, we need different information pulled from a note taker. In a sales call recording, we want to know what were the pain points described, what were next steps. So all of these pieces are unique based on the use case that we're speaking to. When we pick a segment that we are targeting, we want to create that domain expertise so we can speak the language of our audience. If we just say we're a note taker, we run into that problem. Well, then at that point I can buy a small note taker and do it in that way, or I can use text to speech on my iPhone. The functionality that's proprietary is how we take that transcription and have it ready and the most suitable for an electronic medical record.
Makes sense.
As we think about what our beachhead strategy would look like, we want to identify what that segment is. And we do it through a few ways. Simply put, where can we define and quantify a clear pain point? Where can we see that the deals are winnable? And where do we see a willingness to pay for that problem? The cardiologist example is very straightforward because there's a linear financial ROI. Every patient is dollars in the cardiologist's pocket. If there's 5 hours of note taking per day and we're able to eliminate half of that, that's the X additional revenue that's being created. So we want to uncover a few things. It doesn't always have to be financial. It can be hours saved. It can be basically, how are you going to make me money? How are you going to save me money? Or how are you going to get me my time back? When we think of a segment, can we build the dot connectors to find one of those 3 pain points? And then can we highlight the strategic value of adding that in? As we build out that metric and our segment, we want to start thinking about what outcomes we're looking to achieve from our go-to-market strategy. So in the case of Triple Time, we picked 5 of the cities with the highest rate of heart illnesses, found their cardiologist list, and we're looking for outpost clients, basically our first clients in the region that we would give an aggressive offer to build out testimonials so we can find lookalike accounts to repeat that process. Generally speaking, this is the approach we want to take with that beachhead. We want to be hyper aggressive with our first handful of customers, leverage them to build testimonials and use cases of what the return on investment or cost of inaction would have looked like in the first 90 days, and then leverage that to go after every other business in the market. From a sales standpoint, the majority of my success has always come from finding lookalike associations or businesses that I can sell to. I closed a enterprise level deal with Pepsi. The day that contract signed, the next day I started building a campaign for Coca-Cola because I know they're identical businesses. One bottle's red, one bottle's blue, very similar models, meaning very similar pain points. And usually when you're in that neighborly space, it creates a massive opportunity for you to create relatable solutions as well as define relatable problems. So we touched on a couple things here. What I want to do now is go through the DIY exercise. So there's a couple things we want to go through. This is a 7-step process, roughly. We want to use Claude and Perplexity. Those are the 2 tools we're going to use. I'm going to share the links in the chat here in a second. So we have Claude. And we have Perplexity. So before we get started, Claude is used to come up with hypothesis, and Perplexity is used to come up with statistical information. So we use Claude to build out hypothesis, and then we use Perplexity to find anecdotal data. This example that I was giving with triple time as the cardiologist note taker, we use Claude initially to just build out that hypothesis of who we should target, why we should target them. And then as we gather information, we go over to Perplexity to pull that content. And Claude can actually help us define what information we're pulling from Perplexity. If you haven't used Claude or Perplexity before, Claude is very similar to ChatGPT, but it just enables better critical thinking around the questions that you give it. Perplexity is effectively a turbocharged Google search where it can scrape information off the web and provide you statistical information off of 10K reports or any publicly available information. So the first thing we want to do is create the value proposition. If we take all the information from our website, and if we take all the information that we've created with Michael in the previous session, we can use the prompt provided here. And I will be providing all these prompts after the session as well, so you'll have them. What we want to do is go through that entirety of the information that we have and help me understand what are the differentiators, what are the unique value propositions, and what are the specific ways that we solve this problem. And we want to paste any information we have about our business into that, that section with the brackets available for pasted info. We have two ways to do this. I'm okay to go until 6:30, but I just want to ask everyone here, would you like to do this live simultaneously? Or would you like me to go through the instructions, show you the finished example, and then you do it on your own time? Just wanted to check everyone's flexibility for time. I'm happy to show you a completed process. All right. So latter being, I'm going to go through the instructions and then show you the finished product. Second. All right, so first step we need to do is understand what our value proposition is. We want to take all the information that we've gathered so far and we built out for our business, take all the text we have on our website, place it into here, and what it'll do is help us understand what our value proposition is and how we differentiate ourselves from the market. The second step is to dive into the ideal customer profile. So we're going to take the information that we got from our value proposition in prompt 1, and we're going to put this secondary prompt in to understand, based on all the information that we have and any hypothesis that we've created around our ideal customer profile. So if you had content from Michael's information, you would put that content into this prompt as well at the end, and you'd ask it to help define your ideal customer profile. So there's two things that happen with the ICP. One, you're narrowing down to that specific section, but what's most important is point 3 and point 4 in this is outline what does success look like for them and what keeps them up at night. If we think of the cardiologist example, we could just use a high-level ideal customer profile saying cardiologist within Canada, working out of private offices. That doesn't give us enough information to create that poignant messaging. What we want to know is when a cardiologist opens up an office or they run their day-to-day, what makes them feel the day was successful? And more importantly, on a Sunday night when they're getting ready for the next day of work or the next week of work, what are the pieces that keep them up at night and have them worried about the next day in the office? As we uncover those pieces, they become an integral part of our messaging process. Step 3 and step 4 are the most important components to this go-to-market motion. First, we want to use Claude to identify what publicly available information is out there based on the success and the issues that keep our cardiologists up at night. So we put the company information here along with all the information previously gathered, and we ask Claude to help identify any publicly available information out there. So this will help us find databases, any type of reports, PDFs, large statistics that can be relevant in identifying problems and what's happening in the industry, going back to that initial model of what do I sell, who are my clients, what's happening in their industry, and what's happening with their customers. Once we have this information gathered, we can use it consistently to build out our marketing content. We can use it in reference to our sales motions. But what we want to do is combine 2 or 3 aspects of this information to help craft our segmentation. So we take those 10 data points that are created, and I will speak to the permissionless value proposition coming up. The next portion is the permissionless value proposition messaging. Once we have those 10 data points, we want to find out which data points can we blend in order to create a strong narrative of information. So if you think of the cardiologist example again, I was using 2 data points, technically 3. I was using the data point of how many hours per day statistically does a cardiologist spend on note-taking. I was using the data of what are the most common illnesses or diseases that cause regular cardiologist visits. And I guess the balloons have me excited on the camera here. Number 3 was what cities have the highest rate of those type of illnesses. So those are 3 different sources: Health Canada, Cardiologist Association, and then also a library of cardiologist offices. Because we have those 10 sections from step 3 of publicly available data, we now use Claude to build that combination of, hey, how can we combine 2 to 5 data points to build a cohesive message? And what's the availability and ease of collecting that information? Once we have identified that, we piece it together to segment our information based on the data combination that has the highest yield of success, or that's the easiest for us to gather information. What segment would see the most value out of this information? So a completely different example around this, AquaCell Energy sells salt-based batteries to utility providers. We looked up 2 core segmentations of information from publicly available data. One was which cities have the most aggressive sustainable initiatives and grant programs for viable energy solutions, and which cities have had the largest consumption of power and most frequent power outages. If we combine those 2, we find our segment that is crying with pain and looking for a solution. They have all this money to spend to make their cities more sustainable with power consumption, but they're facing all this grid blockage because the demand is far greater than the supply, which means our batteries would be very strong suited to solve that problem because of our unique value proposition, which we don't have to get into. But the idea is, once we have these data pools, so if we think of these step 3, 4, and 5, we identify that publicly available information. We define that combination of data, and then we identify the segment that we want to target within our ICPs. What this allows us to do is start crafting that messaging because we've narrowed it down into something hyper specific. This is where that permissionless value proposition comes in. The idea of permissionless value is whether you work with me or not, I will make your business better. What kind of education, what kind of best practices, what kind of information can I share to make your business better without me having to engage directly? There's 4 core pillars to creating this type of messaging. These are the pillars you need to keep in mind when you are pitching, when you are developing your sales messaging, when you're creating marketing collateral, and when you're thinking of your go-to-market strategy. As you pick the channel that you're going to use, as you pick the market that you're going to pursue and your list of accounts, the baseline of deciding to act on that strategy is, can you create this type of message for the segment that you've targeted with your strategy? So if I am targeting cardiologists on Cardiologist Association, or LinkedIn is going to be my primary channel, can I create messaging that would be a knowledge bomb to give them awareness, explain why they should care about them, show them the way to resolve it, and leave them wanting more? So the example I gave for the cardiologist side was, most cardiologists in an 8-hour day spend at least 5 hours with note taking. And this is exemplified in cities that have a higher rate of heart disease and other cardiologist-based conditions that require regular appointments. This is incredibly important because statistically, cardiologists are susceptible to be burnt out 75% of the time within their first 5 years. The top cardiologists in Ontario are using 4 methods to resolve some of these issues to prevent burnout and see more patients throughout the day and reduce overall note-taking time. We've mapped out several of those strategies in the link below. Curious if you would like us to send it over, or if it's in the link below, that's the call to action to the marketing campaign. If we can create that messaging out, we will have a stronger go-to-market motion, because go-to-market is not just about picking your ideal customer profiles. It's not just about, tying into a specific kind of messaging. It's a blend of everything that primarily ties into domain expertise and being able to communicate value without having to sell your product or speak to your product. One of the options your customers have is to choose your solution, but that's not their only option. What we want to do is help them understand what options are available and which one is best for them. This goes to that rhetoric of how do we present value without having to speak to features and benefits of our product. Once we map this out, we can use Perplexity to search those information pools. So if we know that Health Canada is what we're going to use based on Claude, we can go to Perplexity and ask Perplexity to build us the list from Health Canada of the most common heart or cardiologist-based illnesses in Ontario or in specific regions based on what Claude has given us. This is a high-level Word document of a finished example. And we can use a few different tools as we scale, including Clay, which can help automate this process. These are much further along the road, but what I wanted to share now is an example of finished messaging for a go-to-market motion that I've just done with a client recently. So Aquacell Energy is the client I'm working with for their go-to-market motion. This ties into what I had shared regarding the battery example. Can everyone see my screen again?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So what we're looking to do here is we've targeted California, Texas, and New York based on the work in Perplexity and Claude. And we found all this information around what's happening in those specific markets in a matter of seconds. This is sample messaging. We would not send this because the language is just, there's too much text here, there's too much verbiage. But what we wanted to do is just find out what information can we gather so we can start building collateral. California and New York have the two highest mandates around green energy, which means their electrical systems and utilities are going to be under a lot of pressure. They also have the most amount of grants available. So we did the search through Claude and Perplexity to identify which cities and regions had the highest rate of constraints in their power grids, the most outages in the power grids, and the most value to doubling their battery value in California and in New York. That allowed us to create some very, very personalized messaging that we can send one-to-one. And it also helped us start the content creation process. So you can see here, we're targeting a California utility company. We noticed their infrastructure filed 3 constraints with constrained substations. That information was pulled from Perplexity. And we also found out regions in their area have a 92% capacity during peak periods. We know that they have a $30 million substation investment on record, once again, finding that information from Perplexity. And we know that over a 4-year span, we can save them approximately $25 million if they choose to go with a portable battery option rather than investing in the substation. Once we have that information, we can go to a bunch of the neighboring suburbs and regions and power providers with similar narratives, and we can create an ROI calculation on that 25 million to use across the board. This exercise took about 30 minutes, and now we have a ton of information that we can use to go after the entire Californian market. We use that as our beachhead because California has, once again, the most aggressive mandates around this and is dealing with energy crises as it is. So there's enough pain there for us to build some validation. And the motion that we've created is now in the investor deck to talk about not only the total addressable market, but how we're going to approach it. And if we have success with our beachhead method, we'll be able to scale it through that investment round. So today was a 1-hour session. We sped through this pretty quickly. This is a very simple process for me as well. I'm going to share the prompts. If you would like to take some time to do this together, I'm more than happy to open up my calendar. This is a small group. It probably takes half an hour for us to do this simultaneously. Can definitely reach out to me over LinkedIn as well. But there's a couple core takeaways I want everyone to leave with here. First and foremost, similar to what Mahindra said, we have to focus on the value we can give, not what we're looking to get. You want to think about the world of your buyer. Before you think of go-to-market strategy, before you think of ICPs, just really lock into the world of the buyer and what's happening. For my approach with founder-led sales, I often, when people ask what I do, usually I tell them I'm a therapist for founders. And everyone gets a little bit of a laugh of that, but that's usually what it is. We're juggling so many different jobs as a founder that we don't know which direction to lead into. So one of my skill sets and what I focus on is just slowing down, finding those 2 or 3 things you really need to focus on and helping you achieve those 2 targets. You all as founders need to find that exact narrative with your first customer base. And you do that by leveraging Claude and Perplexity. You can do that through Google searches, but it's going to take you way longer as long as you know what you're looking for. So think about who your potential 2 or 3 audiences would be. Think about how they would speak to the problem. Use Perplexity and Claude to quantify it, and then start testing the market with messaging. When we start using that approach, our opportunities grow in size and velocity. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, there's a lot about like what I've done in sales, but one of the things I'm proudest of is if you go to my recommendations, the majority of my recommendations were from me as an account executive to the clients that I've sold to. Large organizations like British Telecom, all the way down to early stage founders, the entirety of the approach that I took has always been focused on at the end of this session, you will feel more knowledgeable and better off than before you joined this call, regardless of if you chose my product or service. That narrative is what you need to focus on when defining your ICP, and that's the exact same narrative you need to focus on when developing go-to-market strategies. So I'm going to combine all this and I'll send it over to Ty to be distributed along with the prompts. I'll share a little package with some screenshots of what your finished products could look like for go-to-market. And like I mentioned, there's no upsell. I like doing this kind of work. More than happy to have a quick half an hour session individually to help you walk through this process. The objective is you guys shouldn't need me by the end of it. If I did a good enough job with this webinar and I do a good enough job with half an hour, you'll know this process with enough confidence that you'll be able to repeat it yourself. With that, that's all I had for today. I think we have a couple minutes for some question and answer as well. If there are any, I think Amol, I saw, what if the end user and the payer are different? Should the prompts focus on user, pair, or both? You should prioritize doing a split because you want to focus on the pair first. That's the ultimate decision maker, but you need context for both. Many times there are use cases where that happens. So a really good example is with Triple Time. We were targeting Ottawa General Hospital. The CTO is the payer or the decision maker that holds the budget. Cardiologists are the end user. We need to craft messaging that appeases to both. And this can actually help accelerate your sales process quite significantly because the CTO often doesn't speak the language of the cardiologist and vice versa. But the core prompting should be tied to your payer first, not the end user, if they're different. I have not noticed many hallucinations because we separate those prompts. So this is why it is a multi-step process. You're taking the information and you're populating into a new prompt in a new instance. You're not jamming the prompts together. And there is a spot in between where you will take a pause to validate some of that information. So when we find the 10 publicly available information pools, we will go on Perplexity and we'll build a bit of a hypothesis of what of this information is the most valuable to me before going back into Claude to repeating the process. Any other questions?
I don't see any more questions. I'm sure, Bal, you did such an amazing and incredible job that everything is clear to everyone. This was absolutely excellent session. I think so. I have learned so much about go-to-market strategy and it's brilliant. Thank you so much for your time on behalf of our team at TiE Toronto. I'm sure everybody in this session has not only learned just the strategy, but you broke down everything with some real life examples that they can actually go and start implementing things right away. And I think the cherry on the cake is you offering each one of them a half an hour session where they can actually get some tangible outcomes. Is that what our acceleration program is all about? We want to make sure at the end of this 10 weeks, they all have tools which will help them to take their product into the market and get that going. They know what is go-to-market strategy. So on that note, I'm sure everybody will share what I'm saying. Thank you so much for your time. Incredible insights, which came with all the real life examples that we could have all can share real tangible examples, and now they will all have the time in the future. They'll reach out to you on LinkedIn, or if you want, you can share your calendar with us with some time spots. We can share your calendar with this cohort and they can pick up that half an hour time slot which they need to tap into your brain and get some more information out of it. I would request all of you to do share with us your feedback about this workshop, because Bal, what I witnessed today, I want you to be a regular fixture for our next year cohort too. It was fun. It was amazing. And I'm always like, I love in-person workshops, but I always feel online, sometimes the engagement will not be there. But the way you did it, there was an engagement, the real life examples, it's not just the theory. My request for everyone is if you can quickly switch on your cameras very, very quickly and just take 10 seconds to introduce yourself to Bal. So in future, when you reach out to him, he knows who is this person coming from. And we're also going to take a very quick picture of everybody today, so we know who was there. And I know few people left. So Shiv and Danny and Megan, three of you, if you can switch on your cameras very quickly. Monish, I cannot see you. It's very dark wherever you are. and rest are all AI note takers, so I don't need their pictures. Okay, so just a very quick 10 seconds intro. Don't go longer. Let's start. I will just go from my order of screen. Hi, Bala, I'm Upasna. I'm President TiE Toronto. Thank you for the session today. It was incredible. Next person I see on my screen is Lakshmi from Mammon. Lakshmi, go ahead.
Hi, we're Maman. We're developing microneedle patches to eliminate the need for daily injections during fertility treatment. Great presentation today, and I will be reaching out on LinkedIn.
Awesome. One.
Hi, I'm Von Heinz from Adobe Research Labs. Listen, that was a great presentation. We will definitely be reaching out to you. Our target market is probably medium to small, so I might have some interesting questions for that, but that was fantastic. Thank you.
Mahendra.
Yeah, Mahendra Naik, Chair of TiE Toronto. I've been involved with TiE for many, many years. This is excellent. Our whole objective here is to work with entrepreneurs, and your presentation and the workshop that you carried was very good. You know, my message to all the founders, including some of us, is put into action on what you've heard and learned. Okay. They'll go a long way. And one day, you'll be running a similar workshop for the upcoming and aspiring entrepreneurs. So again, thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Mahendra. Amol.
Hi, thanks for the session. It was really good. I run Pure Labs, which is an AI platform helping academic researchers deploy healthcare AI applications. I'll definitely be connecting with you on LinkedIn. So thanks for the session.
Thank you, Amol. Vinay?
Hi, Abel. Amazing session. Loved it. I am a founder CEO of Orange Neurosciences. We do video game-based assessment and therapy for neurodiverse individuals as well as seniors. And we are fast scaling at this time in multiple geographies. So I have already sent you a LinkedIn request while we were on the call. Look forward to speaking with you. Thanks again.
That's amazing. He's already on the ball. Sai?
I actually enjoyed this session, so I'm going to implement this and I'll go forward with the journey ahead. Thank you, Bali.
Awesome. Well, I might bring you in for an in-person workshop next time,
Yes.
and we can have more hands-on work done with the founders next time. Muhammad?
Hi, my name is Mohammed, founder of Moro. I've already joined you on LinkedIn there. Moro is a platform for assistive technology for nonverbal individuals. So like families that have kids that, let's say, have autism, that are nonverbal. So we're creating a platform and app to support the families and other caregivers so that they can enhance the experience for caregiving. So we'll definitely reach out to you. Thank you. Great presentation.
Thank you, Mohammed. Sid?
Hey, hi, Upasna. Thanks, Bal, for the wonderful session. It was quite amazing. We had a good inputs on the marketing strategy. Never heard of the word cloud. We were always using Perplexity. And so I'm managing partner for Privacent, and we are building a platform for humanizing privacy and responsible aware AI awareness platform.
Thank you, Sid. Megan?
Hi, my name is Megan. I'm part of Novasonics Healthcare. Thank you so much for your presentation. And our company works on developing 3D and 4D point of care ultrasound imaging technology for musculoskeletal diseases. And I'll definitely reach out over LinkedIn.
Perfect. Thanks, Megan. Danny? Danny, we can't hear you. I know you're not on mute, but we can't hear you.
I unmuted myself. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
My name is Danny Wang, and I'm the founder of FreeChat. FreeChat is a platform that help Chinese to circumvent the Chinese censorship so that they can get free information and speak freely. And thank you very much on the go-to-market strategy. While you're speaking, I'm actually practicing your tips and doing those search on ChatGPT, and definitely will reach out after this.
Perfect. Lilia, I might be totally crucifying your pronunciation of your name. So first start with teaching me how do I pronounce your name, and then you go from there. Maybe Pauline is easy.
Lilia Jait Poulian. There's a mix of Arabic and French in there, so it's okay. I don't hold it against you.
Okay, so maybe I'll go with Lilia in the future.
Yeah. So my name's Lilia. I'm the CEO and founder of TiEQuest. We generate documents using AI. Thank you for your presentation. I really see the value in approaching sales with a consulting mindset, really focusing on the value of customers and using AI to kind of help communicate that and translate that thinking through writing. So I think that was a great way to show a more modern approach to go to market.
Perfect. Thank you. Shiv, you're the last one.
Hello, sorry, my camera is not working today.
No problem.
But yeah, great session, Balyud. I definitely love the structured approach to GTM. Definitely needed for all founders. Easework AI, we are building AI agents for procurement and supply chain. It's a platform that helps with automation intelligence for manufacturing companies. So definitely we need a lot of work, need to do a lot of work on refining our target segment within manufacturing. So would definitely work on some of the things that you've indicated today. Thanks.
Perfect. Great. I think the only person left here is Lashmi's co-founder. He's sitting in the back seat, but you can still quickly introduce yourself. I know just take a quick second.
Hi there, I'm Rup. I'm a co-founder of Maman Biomedical. Great to be here. Good to see you guys. Excellent presentation. Very practical. Loved it.
Thank you all so much for the kind words. Yeah, go to market is scary. That's usually the thing I get. And there's always this hesitation. There's so much rejection early because you're early. There's all these vetted solutions. There's all these other people out there. But this is the whole idea here. And it fills my heart up knowing that that's the message that resonated. If you take that consultative approach and really think of the problems your prospects are experiencing, that's the core of go-to-market. So yeah, reach out. There's tons of tools that I didn't get a chance to talk about. There's Hyperbound that can help you practice cold calling and pitching for free as well. And this isn't like an affiliate program or anything. This is genuinely just free usage, open source content. And yeah, thank you so much again for Ty for hosting. I like doing them in person as well, online. Always happy to do it again. And if as always, feel free to book that half an hour, reach out on LinkedIn. It doesn't take much to get started on that motion. And usually everyone just needs a little bit of a push from someone in sales to get the ball rolling, and happy to be that for all of you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Bal. Again, on behalf of everyone, you heard from everyone. It was an incredible session. Surely this will be an integral part of our in-person program next year. And before that, I might pull you up for one of our open mic nights to give a similar presentation. Maybe if you're available next month, we can do it again. Depending on your availability, open mic night is every second Wednesday of the month. So we might pull you in for the next month itself because I don't want others to miss any of this. But thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us and taking an opportunity. As we are ending the program, there are just few sessions left. We are so happy. Each one of you are absolutely incredible founder. You're so driven in what you do. And we are so happy at TiE that we got the chance to know each one of you and be a very tiny part of your amazing journey, which is about to unfold very soon. Okay, on that note, have a very good evening, everyone, and we'll be sending you information about the next session. And Sai just put a message, share your experience. He has some links, so whenever you have a chance, you can share your feedback there. Perfect. Thank you, Bal, once again. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Everyone, bye.